Something felt off from the very start. My girlfriend Amanda had always been affectionate, caring, and thoughtful, or so I believed. But lately, small things have begun nagging at me. Her phone was constantly buzzing, yet she'd quickly silence it whenever I entered the room. Her work schedule suddenly became erratic, peppered with unexplained late nights and vague excuses. I tried convincing myself I was just paranoid, imagining problems where there were none. But one evening, as I stood quietly outside our bedroom door, I overheard her whispering in a hushed voice, giggling softly, speaking with an intimacy reserved for someone closer than a friend. My stomach twisted painfully. Every instinct told me I was hearing betrayal unfold in real time, yet I didn't confront her right away. Amanda was clever. Any confrontation without evidence would be turned against me. Instead, I decided to play it cool, pretending I hadn't noticed anything strange. If Amanda thought she had me fooled, that meant she wouldn't cover her tracks carefully. Quietly, I set a plan in motion. If she believed I was oblivious to her deceit, it would only be a matter of time before she slipped up, giving me exactly the proof I needed to expose her lies once and for all. Amanda thought she was in control, but she'd soon discover just how wrong she was. In the weeks following that night, I kept up the act perfectly. I smiled when Amanda smiled, laughed at her jokes, and pretended I was completely oblivious to the tension simmering just beneath the surface. But behind that mask, I carefully observed every detail, every late-night text, every quickly silenced phone call, every unexplained disappearance. Each incident further confirmed my suspicions. Amanda had always prided herself on being smart. Smarter than me, at least. She saw me as naive and overly trusting, often joking with her friends about how easy I was to fool. To her, I was predictable, blindly loyal, someone who would believe whatever lies she fed me without question. Maybe, in the beginning, her manipulation had worked perfectly, inflating her ego. But over time, her arrogance grew into outright contempt. She became careless, openly mocking my supposed cluelessness behind my back, convinced I'd never be smart enough to catch on to her game. That condescending attitude was her biggest mistake, and ultimately her downfall. One evening, as Amanda left the room to take yet another work call, I quietly picked up her phone, my heart pounding furiously as I quickly scanned her messages. My blood ran cold as I read explicit conversations between Amanda and another man. A man whose name I instantly recognized. Tyler is one of my old college friends. They spoke openly about their secret meetings, making fun of how clueless I was, and mocking me behind my back. Each word was like a knife, slicing deeper into the trust I'd once placed in her. Worse, their conversation revealed Amanda had been manipulating me financially, slowly draining funds from our joint accounts to support their lavish dinners, weekend getaways, and extravagant gifts. I stared numbly at the screen, disbelief and anger surging through me simultaneously. It was devastating, but I forced myself to remain calm, carefully snapping screenshots of every incriminating text. The following days tested my resolve more than anything I'd ever faced. Amanda continued her performance flawlessly, showering me with false affection, completely unaware that I knew everything. Tyler even appeared at a mutual friend's party, shaking my hand warmly and smiling boldly into my eyes as though nothing had happened. Every fiber of my being screamed to confront them both immediately, but I held back. I knew I needed absolute proof. The evidence was so clear that neither Amanda nor Tyler could twist it into another manipulative lie. Quietly, methodically, I gathered more evidence, recording dates, times, locations, and photographs, tracking their every deceitful move. Every new piece of proof further shattered my heart, yet also strengthened my resolve. Amanda believed she was in total control, but her arrogance had blinded her to reality. I was slowly but surely reclaiming power over the situation, but nothing hurt quite as deeply as discovering just how widely Amanda's betrayal was known. Her closest friends were fully aware, treating her cheating as entertainment and joking behind my back about my gullibility. Even mutual acquaintances had caught whispers of her infidelity, shaking their heads at my apparent ignorance. Realizing I'd been made a fool publicly intensified my pain, but it also ignited an anger stronger and more focused than I had ever felt before. Amanda didn't just betray me privately. She turned my trust into a punchline, mocking me openly in front of others. I vowed silently that I wouldn't just expose her. I'd dismantle her entire charade publicly, leaving no doubt about the true nature of her character. Finally, after weeks of silent agony and meticulous preparation, I had everything I needed. Screenshots, photos, bank statements linking Amanda to Tyler, and even voice recordings capturing their disdainful conversations about me. Each piece was undeniable, a clear reflection of Amanda's manipulative cruelty. Amanda thought she was clever, invincible, completely in control. But she'd underestimated me, badly. My pain had transformed it into something much more powerful than mere hurt. It had become a calculated resolve. As I quietly finalized my plans, I knew Amanda's arrogance had blinded her completely. She thought she'd won, thought she'd successfully deceived me, but the truth was far different. She'd built her house of cards on lies, believing it would never collapse, but she'd forgotten the simplest truth of all. The higher you climb with deception, the harder you fall when exposed. And soon, Amanda would experience firsthand just how brutal and absolute that fall could be. Discovering Amanda's betrayal had initially left me devastated, shaken to my core. Every illusion I'd carefully constructed about our relationship crumbled in an instant, leaving behind a raw, painful reality. But instead of allowing this pain to break me, I chose to channel it into fierce determination, unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Amanda had underestimated me, thinking I was naive, easily manipulated, and incapable of standing up for myself. For far too long, she'd mistaken my kindness for weakness, exploiting my trust and generosity while laughing at me or behind my back. But now, those days were over. If she saw me as a helpless fool, it was time to show her just how wrong she was. The transformation started slowly and quietly. Instead of immediately confronting Amanda, I maintained my composure, playing the role she expected, a loyal, oblivious partner. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I meticulously gathered evidence and planned my next move. Each day became a careful balancing act, acting casual and unaware, while secretly organizing my strategy for revenge. Outside of our home, my transformation became even more powerful. I focused intensely on my career, pouring energy into projects I had once ignored. Long hours at the office became therapeutic rather than draining, each successful project fueling my growing confidence. Promotions followed swiftly, colleagues began praising my newfound drive, and recognition soon poured in from higher-ups. It was as though Amanda's betrayal had awakened a deeper ambition within me, one I'd never known existed. Physically, I also transformed myself, not simply to look better, but to regain control over the person I'd become. Early mornings at the gym replaced the sleepless nights spent worrying about Amanda's deception. I pushed my body harder than ever, channeling the pain of betrayal into every workout. Soon, my appearance changed dramatically. Friends and coworkers noticed my newfound confidence, commenting on how focused and determined I'd become. Amanda, ever arrogant, interpreted these changes merely as attempts to impress her. She never suspected the truth. I was preparing to expose her completely. Meanwhile, I quietly regained control of my finances, carefully separating our joint accounts and ensuring Amanda could no longer siphon funds for her secret lifestyle. I meticulously documented every transaction she'd made behind my back. Expensive dinners, weekend trips with Tyler, lavish gifts, all paid for with money. She believed I'd never miss. The more evidence I collected, the stronger my resolve grew. Amanda had tried to manipulate and humiliate me publicly. Now it was my turn to show her exactly who she'd been dealing with all along. Socially, I rebuilt my network. Realizing many mutual friends had been complicit in Amanda's deceit, I cultivated new relationships with people who valued honesty, integrity, and authenticity. I quickly discovered that genuine friendships offered support and strength, qualities entirely missing from the toxic circle Amanda had surrounded herself with. Each new connection reminded me that trust and respect were not only possible, but essential in the living a fulfilling life. Throughout this time, Amanda's behavior grew increasingly erratic, fueled by confusion and suspicion. She'd grown accustomed to being the center of my world, comfortable in her belief that I was too weak to challenge her. Now, seeing my newfound independence and strength, she began to falter. She questioned me cautiously about my late nights at work, new social circles, and unexpected financial independence. I deflected easily, never giving her a direct answer, enjoying her growing unease. Amanda's attempts to manipulate me were no longer effective. She'd lost control, and she knew it. One evening, as I carefully organized the overwhelming evidence I'd gathered, I finally understood the true extent of my transformation. The quiet, trusting man Amanda had mocked and manipulated had vanished completely, replaced by someone powerful, assertive, and entirely in control. I wasn't driven purely by revenge. Rather, I'd become someone who genuinely valued himself, someone who recognized his worth and refused to tolerate a betrayal or disrespect. The moment of clarity struck deeply. Amanda's betrayal, painful as it was, had forced me into a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Without her deceit, I might have remained comfortably unaware of my true potential. But now, armed with newfound strength and determination, I was ready, not just to expose her, but to reclaim control of my life entirely. Amanda had set a dangerous trap, believing I'd fall helplessly in despair. Instead, she'd unknowingly ignited something unstoppable within me. She thought I was a fool, too naive and weak to ever see through her lies. But soon, she'd realize just how severely she'd misjudged me. Standing alone in my apartment that night, overlooking the city lights, I knew the truth. Amanda had chosen betrayal, arrogance, and deceit, but I had chosen transformation, empowerment, and clarity, and now the stage was set for the perfect revenge. She thought she had me fooled, but soon she'd discover she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, underestimating me. Amanda had always prided herself on being in control. She thought she had me figured out, that I would always be the guy who forgives, who's too nice to rock the boat, too trusting to question her actions. But I wasn't that guy anymore. The evening before the celebration I had planned, Amanda was more excited than ever, gushing about how perfect everything would be. Little did she know I had no intention of exposing her in front of everyone. I didn't want to humiliate her in front of our friends or make a dramatic scene. No, my revenge would be far more subtle, far more devastating. Over the past few weeks, I'd meticulously created an entirely new persona, one that Amanda wouldn't recognize. I'd become more confident, more independent, and more successful. Not only did I take back control of my finances, but I also rebuilt my social and professional life. I became a version of myself that Amanda could never have anticipated. A man who didn't need her, a man who thrived without her. I carefully restructured my finances, ensuring Amanda had no access to anything I had left, cutting off every possible resource she could use from me. While she continued to enjoy the luxuries I had once provided, I pulled the rug from under her without her realizing it. My plan was simple but calculated. The night of the anniversary celebration, I would let Amanda believe everything was fine. She would think she was winning, that she had me right where she wanted me. After all, she had no reason to suspect I knew everything. She had no idea that while she'd been out spending my money and cheating with Tyler, I had been quietly positioning myself to take everything back, bit by bit. The next morning, I asked Amanda to meet me for a quick coffee. She was elated, thinking the conversation would revolve around our anniversary. I'd already anticipated her joy, her excitement to know how I had softened, to see me trying to work things out. When she walked into the coffee shop, she greeted me with a wide smile, thinking I had forgiven her. She had no idea how wrong she was. I slid an envelope across the table, watching her infusion grow as she picked it up. "What's this?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "Open it," I said, my voice calm but icy. She tore the envelope open, her face slowly losing color as she read the document inside. It was the final divorce papers, filed and ready for submission to the courts. The dates and signatures were all in place, and right under the date, the most important part, she would receive absolutely nothing. Not a penny of the joint accounts, not a single asset, and none of the luxuries she had grown accustomed to. "Surprised?" I asked, watching her face crumble. You can't do this," Amanda stammered, panic setting in. "I thought we were working this out. I thought you were ready to forgive me." I looked at her, not with anger, but with an icy detachment she hadn't seen in me before. "No, Amanda, I've been working on moving on. You've been living in a fantasy. You thought you could have it all. Tyler, the expensive dinners, the weekends away, and that I wouldn't notice or care. But you failed to realize something important. You didn't just betray me. You've been draining me, emotionally and financially, for months." Amanda opened her mouth to protest, to beg, to make excuses, but I didn't let her. "You thought I wouldn't have the strength to act. You believed I was weak because I was in love with you, but you were wrong. You've drained me of everything I cared about, and now you're left with nothing." Amanda's tears began to flow freely now as she realized the full extent of her actions. The love she thought she could control and the money she believed she could waste were now gone. But that wasn't enough. This was not just about her losing me. It was about her losing everything she had built on lies. "You're not getting away with this, Amanda. And you're certainly not getting a penny from me. The money you stole from me? It's gone. I've already taken steps to make sure you'll never benefit from what we built together." Her eyes widened in panic, and I could see the anger beginning to bubble up inside her. the same arrogance she'd displayed when she thought she had everything under control. "You'll regret this," she hissed, barely holding it together. "I'll tell everyone what you did to me." I shook my head. "Go ahead, but when I tell them everything, about you and Tyler, about the money, about the manipulation, you won't have anyone left. You've burned every bridge, and now it's your turn to face the consequences." Amanda knew she couldn't fight this anymore. She had no cards left to play. She stood up abruptly, throwing the envelope down on the table, and stormed out of the cafe. But I felt no anger, no satisfaction. My revenge had never been about humiliation or vengeance. It was about reclaiming my life, my self-respect, and my future. As I watched her leave, I realized that my real victory wasn't in what I'd just done, but in how far I'd come. The man I had been, naive, trusting, and easily manipulated, was gone. In his place stood a person who valued themselves enough to walk away from a toxic situation and rebuild from scratch. Amanda thought she could have everything. Tyler, the luxury, the power over me. But in the end, she had nothing but her destruction. And me? I had everything I needed. Control over my own life, my dignity, and the peace of knowing that I had taken the reins back from someone who thought she could fool me. The weeks following Amanda's humiliating exposure and our separation were surprisingly peaceful. At first, the sudden quiet felt strange. No more lies, no more pretending, no more manipulative games, just honest silence. I moved into a new apartment across town, leaving behind everything associated with Amanda and her betrayal. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. Initially, mutual friends approached cautiously, apologizing for their roles in Amanda's deception, embarrassed by their complicity. I've forgiven some, and chose to distance myself from others, carefully rebuilding a circle of genuine friendships, people who valued honesty, loyalty, and authenticity as deeply as I did. Each new connection felt like a fresh start, untainted by Amanda's manipulations or toxic influences. Professionally, my transformation continued to flourish. No longer distracted by lies and doubts, I threw myself even deeper into my career, achieving promotions and recognition I'd previously only dreamed of. Colleagues and managers praised my newfound confidence and focus, unaware of the painful journey I'd undertaken to reach this point. Every success reminded me of the strength I had found within myself, strength Amanda had never imagined I possessed. Amanda, on the other hand, struggled significantly in the aftermath of her exposure. Her carefully constructed social circle quickly dissolved, friends distancing themselves from her disgrace. Without Tyler, who'd abandoned her at the first hint of trouble, Amanda faced her humiliation alone. The truth had irreparably damaged her reputation, and the consequences rippled throughout every aspect of her life, from social isolation to strained family relationships. At first, part of me felt a bitter satisfaction watching her suffer the consequences she'd so arrogantly earned, but over time I realized that Amanda's downfall wasn't my ultimate victory. True victory had come the moment I decided to reclaim my dignity, strength, and independence. Revenge might have felt satisfying, but genuine healing came from understanding my worth and never allowing anyone to disrespect or manipulate me again. Slowly, carefully, I began rebuilding my life, opening myself up cautiously to new relationships built on trust and mutual respect. Dating no longer frightened me. Instead, I approached it deliberately, knowing exactly what I deserved. I soon met someone genuine, someone who valued honesty and openness as much as I did. Unlike my relationship with Amanda, this connection was authentic, free from manipulation, and based entirely on mutual trust and genuine affection. One evening, as I sat quietly with this new partner, enjoying a peaceful night at home, I reflected deeply on everything I'd endured. Amanda's betrayal had been deeply painful, yes, but it had also become a catalyst for my profound personal growth. Without her deception, I might have continued living passively, unaware of my strength and potential. Her lies had hurt deeply, but they'd also forced me to confront and overcome my insecurities, emerging stronger and wiser than I had ever been. In that moment, the moral of my story became crystal clear. Never mistake kindness or trust for weakness. Manipulation and deception may provide temporary satisfaction, but they inevitably collapse under the weight of truth. True strength lies in facing betrayal head-on, turning pain into empowerment, and reclaiming control over your own life. Amanda thought she had me fooled and believed I was too naive and trusting to ever challenge her. Yet in the end, her betrayal revealed a deeper truth. She'd underestimated my strength, my intelligence, and my resilience. She'd taught me, albeit unintentionally, that the greatest revenge isn't simply exposing someone else's deceit, but rather becoming someone who can no longer be deceived. As I held my new partner's hand gently that night, I felt genuine peace and contentment. Amanda's betrayal, painful as it was, had ultimately freed me. I learned that honesty, integrity, and self-respect are the true foundations for happiness. I'd reclaimed my story completely, rewriting it with strength, clarity, and purpose. Amanda had believed her lies would always remain hidden, forever protecting her fragile world built on manipulation, but she'd forgotten one essential truth. Deceit always crumbles, and the strongest force on earth isn't manipulation, it's authenticity. Now, with my truth firmly reclaimed, I moved forward, wiser, stronger, and unbreakable. Amanda had underestimated me, believing I was weak, but instead she'd awakened a powerful, resilient version of myself that I'd never known existed. And that, ultimately, was the greatest revenge of all. What about you? Have you ever reclaimed your power from someone who underestimated you? Share your story. I'd love to hear it.